Welcome to another Brain Domain presentation. Today we're going to be talking about leftist infighting. Anybody who identifies as a leftist or a progressive who has spent any amount of time in those spaces, you've undoubtedly run into situations where people will purity test, people will carry themselves in a sort of holier-than-thou way, or they will otherwise disregard a potential ally over a minor disagreement. That's what we'll be talking about today, the phenomenon of leftist infighting. So, buckle up, let's get to it. When I think leftist movements, I think justice, inclusion, and liberation. That's what leftism means to me. However, what you will often see in these movements is internal collapse through division within the group. The group will splinter, will break off into smaller and smaller factions, and it loses all of its momentum and it loses all of its power. Like a big boulder that's now been turned into a bunch of little tiny rocks, a bunch of little grains of sand. It's sad. It's sad because you'll have that energy, you'll feel like we'll get something done, and then nothing gets done. That's what we're going to talk about today. The reason why people infight isn't always just over ideological differences. It's not just because I believe in UBI and you think UBI is stupid and that's why we're starting our own groups. It's more than that. It's often very emotional, very personal, and sometimes it even ties into the traumas that a person has experienced in their life. And so today, what we're going to take a look at is why leftist infighting happens. We're going to talk about some different ways that it manifests, and we'll go over some ideas on what can be done to transform it so that we can remain cohesive, so that we can actually have the solidarity that we're looking for. So the question is, can we switch from gotcha to growth? Can we switch from punishment to progress? Are you ready? Let's get into it. So, let's define leftist infighting a bit more clearly before we move forward. Infighting refers to internal conflict within a group. Within a group that will typically share a broad ideological alignment. You and I agree with each other on at least 90% of stuff. Maybe even more, maybe 99 and some change. But it's that one thing that you and I don't see eye to eye on, and that's where the problem is. And so we've got people splitting off from one another because of those differences. And it weakens the movement. It weakens the ideology. I feel like this happens in every group/subculture. It does. What you'll see is that people will break off from larger groups and move themselves into tighter and tighter echo chambers until they can surround themselves with people who agree with 100% of all of the bullshit that I think. That's what I'm looking for. Well, maybe this guy likes sausage on his pizza and maybe I like pepperoni, but, we can let bygones be bygones. You see it all over the internet. The internet has really perpetuated this type of phenomenon. You find people in these very microcosm subcultures, just these tight echo chambers where they can just share all of their dog shit beliefs with each other and then congratulate each other on all being the smartest people in the world. Pepperoni is pretty ass. You're out. You're out. Get out. Go start your own channel. Get out. All right, here are some common examples of leftist infighting. First up, callouts and cancellations. Did you know that this person once said this thing? I have a screenshot. Actually, I have a clip of it. They said this thing back in 2016, and it's important that you know about it, and you should no longer support them because of it. Now, it's important to call out bad behavior, but when it exists within a leftist space, it often feels more opportunistic, like this person is only calling out the other person because they're trying to bump themselves up within the perceived hierarchy. When in reality, there is no hierarchy. It's all about equality and solidarity. And so, it's callouts for the wrong reasons. It's being made in bad faith. Like, I don't know about you, but I've said some stupid shit that I would never say again. Because you know what? I learned, and I grew, and I'm trying to do better. And that's all I could expect of anybody. Just try your best. Nobody's perfect. Another common way that you will see people infight is through ideological gatekeeping and purity testing. What do you mean you're in the DSA? What do you mean you're a Maoist? What do you mean you're a Leninist? What do you mean you once supported this person and that person turned out to be a bad person? It's a type of social climbing behavior that people will do. They will try to take others down so that they can move up the ladder. And this type of mindset does not belong in a leftist space, because leftist spaces are about solidarity, growth, mutual understanding. And so this type of behavior is the antithesis of what you would expect somebody to do. You'll see a lot of people use social media as a way of garnering support and as a way of publicly shaming others. Did you see what they posted? Look at this screenshot. Check out this video clip. And it's the type of stuff that lacks nuance. You know, like if you're showing a clip of somebody who's still shitty today, and you're showing a video of them being really shitty a few years ago, it's like, oh wow. Now I know even more about just how shitty they are. But if it's a person that, for all intents and purposes, has been well-meaning and kind, and you're like, wow, can you look at that? They did something shitty back then. They must actually secretly be shitty today. It's a type of all or nothing thinking, which, you know, it's not a zero-sum game. There's not just winners and losers. Life is about growing and doing better, and anyway. Factionalism, Ideological turf wars, that's when you start getting into those little tiny groups and you're like, well, actually, I'm this type of thing and you're that type of thing. So you can probably think of different labels, different subgroups. It's like, oh, you watch this streamer? Well, I watch this streamer actually because this streamer is more correct and your streamer said some stuff that I don't agree with. It's normal and healthy to have disagreement. But what makes it toxic is when the goal is not accountability. The goal is just domination. It's just about moving up the social ladder. It's just about climbing up. It's about taking away somebody else's viewers. It's about trying to win over public favor so that you can be the more popular voice. You know, just think, have you found any of this to be relevant? Especially, you're on Twitch right now, right? And Twitch, for all intents and purposes, is one of the major platforms for progressive voices in the live streaming space. You've probably seen it here. Maybe it's some stuff that's happened here that inspired me to, you know, have this talk about the topic. At its worst, what infighting does is it turns people's values into weapons. It punishes people for their imperfections rather than guiding them to grow. Does accountability even look like, though? I feel like people apologize for something done/said and everyone still feels like they haven't taken accountability for their actions because they haven't been punished severely enough. Well, then you gotta remember that you're never gonna win over 100% of people. There are gonna be people who are still clinging on to it for their own personal reasons. Maybe it triggered a trauma within them, and so that's why they have this like very intense response to the offense. And we'll talk about that. Some people just have a hard time letting go. Some people have a hard time forgiving. Some people don't believe in growth. And so you're never gonna win over 100% of people whenever you take accountability for something. All you can do is just be earnest, be sincere, and mean it. And then have your actions speak for your words. Let's talk about the paradox identity. Leftist values often center around identity representation, lived experience, these frameworks offer necessary recognition. You know, people can feel seen, people can feel validated, people can have a voice at the table. People can be among equals. However, these frameworks can also create rigidity. For example, having a disagreement with somebody might make you feel as if you are being personally invalidated. Having a discussion about ideas can be misinterpreted as an attack on your identity. Imagine you're some type of person. You're some type of person, and you meet somebody who has never met your type of person, whatever that might be. And so they might say things that rub you the wrong way because they've never met somebody like you. Or maybe they have questions that feel invasive because they've never met somebody like you. Now, I don't think that people should always carry the burden of having to explain themselves to others or answer people's unasked for questions. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that you should have to go around explaining to everybody why you are the way you are. But I do think that we should not always assume ill intent when other people have questions. Maybe they're just curious. Maybe they're not actually trying to attack you in some way. There's also this expectation that you have to prove your identity or you have to prove your allegiance to avoid being discredited. Fragile identity politics can quickly become a zero-sum game. A zero-sum game means there are winners and there are losers. Either you win or you do not. And so it's competitive. It's confrontational. It's intense. Just remember, solidarity suffers when nuance is lost. All right. Let's talk about the dynamics of the in-group versus the out-group. This paradox doesn't feel exclusive to leftists, but I know that's not your point. We will get more into it, why specifically it is related, but we're setting the framework for the phenomenon, and we'll get there. Don't worry, we've got a lot more to cover. It's normal to expect opposition from your enemies. However, dealing with criticism from within your own camp often feels more threatening. These people are behind my walls. They can get within shanking distance of me. The phenomenon of marginalized or allied groups turning against each other is referred to as horizontal hostility. I'm attacking people of my own class. We're all the working class. We are all the have-nots. So horizontal hostility is what we want to avoid whenever necessary. Because any attack on our own people, it serves the benefit of our opponent. Betrayal within your in-group often feels more intense. And this is because it can threaten your sense of belonging, and it can also threaten your sense of moral coherence. The feeling like I have these things that I believe, and I am actively working to support those beliefs. As a result, people who are almost like us end up becoming targets for a disproportionate amount of hostility because they have challenged our identity boundaries. Will this be available to watch again? I'm going to trim it down for YouTube, but it'll also be available in the VOD. You can also get a copy of the slides. I've made them publicly available. You type !slides in the chat. Just think about this point for a moment. Have you ever, either within yourself or noticed someone else do this, where they take offense to the misuse or the misunderstanding of something that's already very nuanced within an identity space? Meaning, I wouldn't even know what this word meant unless I was already a supporter of you, because I know the lingo, I know the terminology. Do you know what do you get what I mean? Like, I wouldn't even know what these terms were unless I was already invested in understanding and validating your identity. But since this person is so close to your vulnerable spots, whenever they make a mistake, it hurts more because they are in closer proximity to our soft spots. Do you feel me? Can you dig it? Because of this in-group, out-group dynamic, factionalism continues to grow. People will adhere to certain labels, and they will focus their efforts on criticizing people of those labels rather than criticizing the people who are actually their enemy. Like, I don't identify as a liberal. I find liberals to be annoying, but I'm willing to work with them because they are almost like me. I have a better chance at winning somebody over to my side when they are almost like me than if they are on the complete opposite side of the spectrum. Alright, let's keep it moving. Let's talk about something that we're going to refer to as moral absolutism. Moral absolutism frames issues in binary terms. There is right and there is wrong. You are an ally or you are an enemy. Moral absolutism is a very black and white way of thinking. And so, in leftist spaces, this can manifest as the demand for total ideological purity. If you don't agree with every one of my takes, you are my enemy. You do not support me. It can also manifest as a refusal to acknowledge a person's personal growth or the learning curves involved in developing new knowledge. Life is not black and white. Humans are weird. Humans are full of paradoxes. Humans are full to the brim of paradoxes. And part of the paradoxical nature of humans is that you have to become comfortable with the paradox. You have to be certain in your uncertainty. It can also result in the quick condemnation of wrongthink, even if unintentional. I've seen this happen a lot, often to older members of the group. You know, maybe there's a person within your space and they're a bit older, they're from a previous generation, and they use a term that's outdated, or they use a term that's now insensitive or inappropriate. I've seen a lot of people get condemned because of those moments, when in reality, all that it requires is a conversation with them like, hey, we don't say that anymore, okay? Like, we don't use that word anymore, just so you know. But I've seen people take that and run with it as, oh my god, can you believe this? They are actually a terrible person. Did you see this word that they said? Everything about them is a lie. They're actually horrible. I've seen this happen so many times, and it most often happens with people who are either new to the group and they're still learning, or they're from a previous generation and they're still trying to catch up with the lingo. Okay, I'll give you an example. It's a personal example. Like, I've gotten shit before because I still will use the word homeless instead of unhoused. The reason why I still use it is because, do you think a person who doesn't have a house or a home gives a shit about what label you use to refer to them? No. They care about finding a home. And so it's arguing over shit that doesn't really matter instead of solving the actual problem. Hold on, I'm gonna let the dog out real quick. He's crying. I'll be right back. 2 seconds. Alright, just had to let the boy out. Unhoused, I just learned that term. Yeah. It's just a way of, like, okay, so when we use a term for a long enough period of time, it starts to develop a reputation. It starts to develop, feelings surrounding that word. And so what will happen often is people will change the word that they use as a way of helping themselves feel better with a concept that they find uncomfortable. Doesn't do anything to actually help the people suffering, it's just so that the people who like to talk about the topic can feel better about themselves while doing it. This type of rigidity, it stifles discussion. It can lead people into a moral panic. Like, oh my god, am I a good person? Am I actually terrible? I thought I was an ally, but everybody's saying that I'm terrible now, so maybe I'm actually a terrible person. And so what ends up happening is it becomes unsafe to explore or to question or to disagree, even when doing so in good faith. Because there is right and there is wrong, you either are my friend or you are my foe. on, I'm gonna let the other dog out. She's also decided that... Wait, no, she changed her mind. I thought she also wanted to leave the room, but she decided to lay back down and take a nap. All right. All right. We mentioned it earlier, trauma, and how it also factors into this. So let's get into that. Let's talk about emotional reactivity. As you may already know, many people who are drawn to activism carry trauma. Trauma, the pain that a person endures, it motivates them to go out and do something to end that suffering for other people. And I think that's a really beautiful thing to do with trauma, is to turn it into activism. I think that's one of the best things that you can do with it. It might be personal trauma, it might be collective trauma, it might even be intergenerational trauma. What trauma does is it creates these emotional flashpoints. It can make disagreements feel dangerous. It can make criticism feel like abandonment or betrayal. When you find yourself in conflict, it's reactivating those wounds from the past harm that you have endured. And so, whenever your safety feels threatened, you respond with your trauma behaviors. This is why healing spaces are important. That's what we try to be here. We're working on it. People need spaces where they can focus on their healing so that their trauma doesn't spill out into community dynamics. Because all that trauma does is it just makes tensions high, and it makes it really hard for solidarity to occur because we're too emotionally reactive. I can't believe that somebody in this Discord said that to me. I need to break off and I need to start my own Discord, and I need to invite everybody that I liked from the old Discord so I can make my own tighter little echo chamber. Can you say again what you said about what activates past trauma behaviors? I missed what the trigger was. Whatever triggers a person's trauma is normally contingent to the type of trauma that they endured. It can be very specific to them as a person. It could be a specific word, it could be a specific tone, it could be, people asking questions even. I'll give you an example. It's like maybe you had a parent who was just always grilling you with all these questions, and you just started to develop this trauma response to people questioning your identity or asking you questions about who you are. And so now you can't have conversations with people about your identity because it reopens that wound. It reminds you of, getting grilled by your parents. And so what ends up happening is we have activism that re-traumatizes rather than liberates. Just imagine, you're a person who has endured trauma, and for the first time in your life, you're able to find a group that you feel safe in, and then you get re-traumatized. Because somebody asks you a question, or somebody says the wrong thing, reactivates that wound. Oh great, well now I've got nowhere to go. I thought I only had that one place. That was the only place for me, and I had finally found it, but it wasn't, and now I'm all alone again, until you find the next group. Thoughts? Questions? Comments? Concerns? Alright, I'm timing that person out because they're just posting walls of text about some idea that they're having that's going to revolutionize humankind, and it's very distracting. I'm trying to see what people are talking about this topic in chat. So I appreciate the energy. You're just, having your own entire conversation, and it's a bit distracting. You seem a bit manic. I agree. Typically when a person has such energy and enthusiasm about, oh my god, I've had this idea and it's going to save the world, it's going to fix humankind, we need the people to know about it, and we need them to know about it right now. That's a very good indicator that a person might be a little manic. How to navigate people's traumas when you don't know what they are? Your trauma is up to you to heal. Other people can help to encourage that healing, but ultimately it is your wound to deal with. I can't reach into your brain and, hey, I got it. And so, all that you can do is, if you do accidentally trigger somebody, apologize. I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Hope you realize I didn't mean anything by it. I hope you still consider me a friend. And you want to be able to be accepting of people when they make those types of amends and they do hold themselves accountable. Help yourself before you can help others. You gotta be at your best if you're gonna give your best help. You gotta put your own oxygen mask first before you help the person sitting next to you. All right. The mask on first is hard for me, and I do this for a living. Hypoxia sets in quick. That's why they tell you when you're on an airplane and the oxygen masks deploy, put your own mask on first. The effects of hypoxia, the lack of oxygen, can take effect in less than a minute. And you will become disoriented, like, whoa, where am I? Why is this thing hanging from the roof? What's going on in here? This plan's crazy. That can happen very quickly, and it's scary. And so that's why you have to put your own mask on first, because time is of the essence. The other person's not going to die if they go an extra couple seconds before putting their mask on. You've got a good 3-4 minutes before your brain starts to take damage from oxygen deprivation. So don't worry, you got time to... But hypoxia sets in quicker than brain damage does. Anyway, that's enough about oxygen masks. Let's get into status, clout, and purity testing. Let's talk about some of the more annoying aspects of this phenomenon. In activist spaces, credibility often comes from the perceived moral clarity of a person. If I believe that you are a moral person and that you act on those morals and I can understand what your morals are, I will assume that you are a credible person and I should listen to you and I should work with you and I want to be on your team. However, this can create a competitive environment. Who's the most informed? Who's the most radical? Who's the most intersectional? Who's willing to work with the most people? Who's the most welcoming? As someone who was raised in a very conservative household, purity testing always rubs me the wrong way. It took me time to get to where I am now. That's a good point, and I'm glad you brought that up, because purity testing isn't unique to the left. We just do it for different reasons. Typically, if you're more on the conservative side, the reason why they're going to purity test you is because, well, if you're not pure enough, you're not getting into heaven, buddy. Think you're going to make it through the pearly gates? And so they do it too, because it's a human thing to do. A lot of what we're talking about today can be applied across the board, but we are trying to focus more on the left side of the spectrum. Because of this competitive environment, calling other people out becomes a way to gain clout or to prove your superiority. Like, hey, did you see what so-and-so said in DMs? Oh my god, and then you can climb the ladder. You can get one step closer to daddy. This is kind of like tattletale teacher's pet behavior, isn't it? In a way, right? Like, aw, look what they did. Oh, you're in trouble. Like, damn, and we're still doing that shit as adults. Humans. What a weird bunch we are. Some people may perform activism for approval rather than impact. And this is something that it's important to be mindful of. You will encounter people in progressive or activist spaces because it's the hip thing to do. It makes you feel cool. Other people approve of it. Like, hey, yeah, look how good you are. You're a good person, aren't you? Oh yeah, you're a good person, aren't you? You're a good little human, aren't you? Let me just pat you on the head. Such a good little human being. Have you ever met people like that? I have, and they are the worst. I have, and they are the worst. These are some of the, they're just in it because they want to fit in. They makes them feel good about themselves. They don't actually care about making changes. They just want to be on the right side of history. And so it's a bit performative. I have no way of knowing people's true motives. This is why actions speak louder than words. If somebody is actually putting in the time and the effort and they're doing the work and they're actually, able to do business, that's like, okay, maybe they're in it for more than just the kudos. Maybe they're in it for more than just the high fives and handshakes. Maybe they actually do give a shit. They've only increased with time to a point I feel most leftist spaces are just full of those people, IMO. This is just going to be me theorizing here real quick. I feel like it's much easier to be an armchair activist than it is to be a real activist. Would you agree? And so recognizing that these people exist is it's part of the process. These people are gonna be there. And so the trick, or the goal here, is to convert those people into actual activists by using things like peer pressure or other incentives. Like, hey, show up to the thing, we'll give you a t-shirt. We'll give you food. Food and a t-shirt? I'm there, buddy. I'm there. Food and a t-shirt? Sign me up. It's normal for people to be careful with their words because they don't want to inadvertently offend anybody else, and so they might speak carefully, or they might admit to their uncertainty. Maybe they have uncertainties within them. That's normal. We're uncertain about all sorts of shit. These types of people can be chastised for their vulnerability. They might be seen as, oh, you're less committed. You're not really a ride or die, are you? Are you even here right now? So the problem is when true vulnerability gets replaced with rehearsed performance. Oh yeah, I'm really in it for the cause, I'm just sick of seeing it, all the suffering and all that. It's the worst. We really need to do something about this. Let's move on. Let's talk about how social media makes this phenomenon even worse. What social media has done to us is it's created an environment where people will form tighter and tighter echo chambers centered around their beliefs. Beyond that, social media platforms are also programmed to amplify outrage because it generates interest, it generates conflict. More people click on it, more people see it, you can make more ad money off of it. And so it's overinflated. There's also just no room for nuance. And so being dramatic, being outraged, calling people out, taking others down, this can become incentivized through how social media algorithms work. FlopTube, exactly. Think of, those types of people. The types of people who make YouTube channels where they just post about, online drama. I think the old-timey term for those types of people was muckrakers, if I remember my elementary history class well enough. Oh no, those were actually a good thing. Never mind. They were reformist journalists. They were there to rake the muck, they weren't there to play around in the muck. So I'm glad I looked it up. I had the wrong idea in my mind. I think I'm confusing it with yellow journalism. It's been a while. I think I learned about this in the 5th grade. Isn't it great that a post can go viral without any context or without any type of correction? Isn't that nice? Isn't it nice that somebody with a big viewer base can just perpetuate an idea without any credibility and without any challenge? Isn't that just delightful? What really sucks is that accountability has been flattened into entertainment. People are incentivized to keep the fight going rather than actually hold themselves accountable and be willing to, apologize and reflect and grow. It's like, no, it just continues to feed into the cycle. Really need to be teaching critical thinking skills in like all grades. The real question is, why don't they do it already? You've probably witnessed, you're on Twitch right now, so you're probably at least semi-familiar with some of the internet drama that gets perpetuated. You've probably seen people have these grand narcissistic crash outs just continuing to double down, triple down, quadruple down, because another thing that's important to remember is that a lot of the larger influencers have tremendous egos. People with tremendous egos have a huge problem with accountability. And so you don't want to subscribe to the ideologies of people who avoid accountability, because then you're just sopping up to a narcissist. The result of all this? Conflict becomes content. It's this kind of stuff that just makes me want to leave the planet. I just want an alien to abduct me and take me to the other side of the universe. Just get me out of here. I'm over it. Did you hear what this person said about this person? No. Why should I care? Anyway. People are capable of building an audience by attacking others. They're feeding into this culture of surveillance and spectacle. So this is why I would encourage you, as a consumer of content, to just be mindful to the ideals that are being perpetuated by the person that you're watching. Who is it exactly that I am forming this parasocial bond with? I don't know about you, but I like to see people learn and grow. I like to see people have a character arc. You know? I like to see people learn from their mistakes and do better. I don't like it when people are always right. That makes a boring story, doesn't it? Makes for a boring story. A story about a person who is perfect and is always doing everything perfectly, and they never have to apologize, they never have to own up to anything that they've done. I don't know about you, but that story would bore me to tears. We like to see people learn and grow and do better. Isn't that the whole fucking point? Isn't that the whole point of being human? Learning, growing, doing better? Or am I stupid? It could be both, actually. It could be both. Don't need to get ahead of myself. It could be both. Because of how social media operates, people are discouraged from having an open dialogue. People are instead rewarded by taking polarizing sound bites over actually having thoughtful conversations. Like, what about what you said can I clip and then use out of context to make you look like a piece of shit? You see this done all the time. All the time they're pulling this shit. All the time. It's exhausting. Social media makes it worse. Could be a slide on every single one of your slideshows. I agree. I agree. This is a good topic. Thank you, Solio. I'm encouraging people in progressive spaces to spread it around. You know, send it to your favorite content creators. Have them react to it. Don't you just love it? Don't you just love it when your favorite brain tells you what they think about a thing? Isn't that... We love it, don't we? Anyway, so send it to some of your favorite brains so that you can see what they think about it. To debate, you must treat the other and their points with good faith. Without good faith, it's just an argument. It's true. The debates we have today on the internet are not debates. It's just people showing up to argue so that they can generate controversy and they can generate content. And nothing ever gets done. And it sucks. Because the world sucks. And we need to fix it. We're just chirping at each other. We're just monkeys flinging poop at each other. And I'm over it. Let's talk about another angle about this. Let's talk about scarcity and the fight for resources. Since there isn't a lot of institutionalized support for progressive spaces or progressive organizations, the people in those spaces and the individuals and the organizations themselves, they operate under resource scarcity. There's limited funding, they have limited reach to develop more following, they have a hard time getting the attention that they deserve, and they most certainly don't have the institutional support that other movements do. This is why right-wing infighting doesn't destroy their movement, is because they have the institutional backing. If we had institutional backing of progressive movements, we wouldn't continue to splinter into nothing. Because of this scarcity, it fosters into that zero-sum mindset that we were talking about earlier. It's either you win or you lose. If they're getting the support, we're not. You can't watch that streamer. We need to be supporting this streamer. They have more viewers than me. Therefore, my voice is not being taken seriously enough. So what happens is that this infighting becomes a form of gatekeeping access. Who gets the mic? Who gets the funding? Who gets the legitimacy? Who do we pick? Right now it's Hasanabi. Right now it's the big man himself. At least on Twitch. I don't know if you've heard of him. But I hear he's pretty popular. Because of this perceived, or actually it's not even just perceived, it is realistically scarce, we avoid collaboration because we are instead in competition. Community turns into conflict. I can't have other people come on my show. People might start watching them instead of me. I can't collaborate with this other person. They might steal away my viewer base. They might take my followers. So anyway, this is an important angle. We're trying to cover it from all angles today. So if it feels like this is a lot to absorb, it's because we put a lot into it. There's a lot that we cover today, so take your time. What are some of the consequences of infighting? Well, a big one is burnout. A lot of people just give up. A lot of people are just over it. They're like, I'm sick of this shit. They emotionally check out due to that ongoing tension and that pressure to perform perfectly. Has anyone here ever felt burnt out from a progressive space because of that tension and pressure? Quick show of hands. I have. Sometimes I'll be like, let's see what's going on in here. I'm just gonna find another place to I'm not even gonna. Another big consequence is disillusionment. You might have newcomers that are trying to enter your belief system, and they're full of ideals, And then when they get there, they're like, hold on, this isn't what I was hoping for. This is actually very toxic and inflexible. And so not only do we push people away, but we stop other people from joining. As we mentioned before, groups will splinter. There's a lot of fragmentation within the movement, and that takes away momentum, it takes away the power of the movement. You remember the Occupy Wall Street movement? Just a bunch of people got together because they're like, yeah, Wall Street sucks. And then it's like, well, wait, why are we all actually here? And it all splintered apart because they all agreed that Wall Street sucked, but what to do about it, what they were demanding from it, you know, like that all varied greatly between the people. And so it really sucks to see a shared cause get splintered over minor ideological differences. You've probably seen it happen within some of the spaces that you've occupied, because it happens all the time. I can't watch this person anymore. They had a take I don't agree with. I need to find a safe space where I'm just surrounded by people who agree with me. Don't forget that the opposition will also utilize this against you. The opponents of progressive movements will use infighting to discredit them. They will say that they are chaotic, they are hypocritical, they are unserious. So it should be highly motivating that our enemies like it when we do this. Just keep that in mind. Can I have a moment of your time? Can you wait? I'm kind of doing something right now. Or write it up and put it in the question box, and I'll take a look at it once the presentation's done. Anyway, what this all adds up to is just lost opportunity. Energy that could have been taken and used to build something great. You could have formed a coalition, you could have actually enacted change. That energy gets wasted, and that's tragic. It gets spent on personal vendettas, moral posturing. And so that's why I find it so frustrating. You know, because it's like you get your hopes up that things are going to get better, and then they don't, because we picked ourselves apart. It just sucks. I'm just gonna sit with this for a moment. I'm being reminded of a lot of my own frustrations. So. We've got more ground to cover. We've got more that we're going to go over. Let's get to it. Let's not dwell. Let's take a moment to just talk about what infighting isn't. Because not all conflict is infighting. Accountability is necessary. It involves care, boundaries, and repair. It's normal to have disagreement, and it's essential in any political movement. If you don't have discussion and disagreement within a political movement, doesn't that sound a little bit like fascism? You gotta believe what I believe, otherwise you're wrong. Doesn't that sound a little fashy? Infighting is often just devoid of compassion. It's not necessarily done in good faith. We don't want to see people grow, we just want to prove people wrong. And so it escalates rather than resolves. So the next time you feel like you want to engage with somebody, ask yourself this question. Is this conversation helping someone to grow? Or is this just putting them down? If no repair is possible nor desired, it's not accountability. It's punishment.
It's Paul Remus again. Still
Paul Remus. Not Paul Remus again. There's this random track on this lo-fi playlist where it's playing like a fake commercial and it's this guy's like, hey, it's Paul Remus here. And every once in a while he pops up. It's like 9 hours of a playlist and every once in a while it pops up. I'm like, Paul Remus got me again. Alright, so how do we move out of this gotcha mindset and how do we move towards growth? We are in desperate need of a new paradigm. We need one that is centered on transformation rather than domination. What do I mean by gotcha? I mean those moments where it's like, oh, you said the wrong thing. You said the wrong thing. I'm going to point it out. You know, you don't actually care about the person being accountable. You don't care about them learning from it or growing. You just want to point it out. Aha, look at what you did. Aren't you such a bad person? You're a naughty little boy. You're not allowed in the club's house anymore. You need to get out of here. You pooped your pants. You're gone. People just want to be right and point out other people's mistakes so that they can prove just how awesome they are. Aren't I so cool? Like, I'm really good at pointing out other people's mistakes. Yeah, never made a mistake in my life. I'm actually so good at recognizing it. I'm just pointing them out in people all the time. Here are some key shifts that we would like to see. We would like to move away from shaming people and move towards actually helping people to learn. You know, instead of just making people feel awful for their mistakes, let's help them figure out what they did that was wrong so they can grow from it. The thing about shame is that we utilize it pretty regularly to try to motivate people to do things differently, but it doesn't always work. Sometimes it has the opposite effect. Sometimes it actually pushes people in the opposite direction. Because shame is powerful. Shame hurts. And so wield it carefully. I'm not saying don't ever shame people, because there are people out there who deserve to be shamed. You know who you are. But we don't need to be shaming people who are close to us. We want them to learn, we want them to grow, we want them to be better, right? And shaming them is very unlikely to actually help them do that. We want to move away from condemnation and towards curiosity. Instead of saying, oh my God, how could you say that? We can instead say, what makes you say that? Shaming can make people double down. Oh yeah, shaming is painful. Like, shame sucks. It's a very uncomfortable emotion to feel. Makes you feel very vulnerable. And so people avoid feeling it. And so when you try to make them feel it, they often aren't going to let that feeling in. You can say, oh, shame on you. You should be so ashamed of yourself. It's like, they're probably not going to. Unless they genuinely have remorse for what they've done. Often people who utilize shame often have a lot of shame within them. That's why they whip it out so often. So if you know people who are just very quick to shame others, it's like, kind of makes you wonder what's going on up here. We need to move away from superiority and towards solidarity. You still see a lot of that clout chasing, social climbing, hierarchical bullshit that we need to be rid of. You know, yeah, people are evolutionarily primed to not want to be disliked, because historically, if you got kicked out of the village, your chances of survival, they go way down. They go down near zero. So, yeah, there is a biological component to that. We don't want to be kicked out of the group, because then how am I going to find food? How am I gonna find food? What am I gonna do? Where's my shelter? Who's gonna stay up at night and make sure that the wolves don't come? Here are some questions to ask in moments of tension. Is this person open to learning? That's a really important one. If this person is open to learning, do I need to condemn them? Do I need to shame them? Do I need to prove it to myself that I'm superior than them? Am I speaking to connect or to correct? What does this situation need? Does it need clarity? Does it need care? Or does it need space? Sometimes it just needs a little bit of clarification. Sometimes it needs a little bit more care. You need to soften up a little bit. Sometimes people just need space to cool down. Right. let's talk about what helps to build healthier movements. I wanted to make a joke about fiber there. Yeah, another like a good old poop joke. Oh, a burrito? Oh, thank you. I was just thinking about how hungry and thirsty I was, and look. If there's anybody watching this video, reacting to it, or thinking about it, or trying to learn from it, you're just gonna have to wait a second. My burrito just got here. I'm just gonna take a couple little pieces off of it, don't worry. Don't worry, I'll save the rest for later. But I do need to take a drink, because I ran out of water. Alright. Let's talk about what it takes to build a healthier movement. First up, psychological safety. People need space to be imperfect. They need space to ask questions. And they need to be allowed to evolve without fear of exile. Coke Zero. This is actually the Aldi brand Coke Zero. The Aldi brand came up with their own Coke Zero, and pretty good. Any Coke Zero is bad Coke Zero. That's an L take. Coke Zero is delicious. Better than the diet one. It tastes more like Coke than the diet one does. The diet one has that like generic Diet Cola kind of taste to it. This one tastes more like Coke Zero. The only zero sugar sodas I'll drink are root beer and Sprite. Why are you leftist infighting me? I need space to be imperfect. I like the diet, like don't get me wrong, I like the diet generic soda they have at Aldi too. I think it's fine. Whenever we go to Costco, we get Diet Pepsi, because Diet Pepsi is better. Alright, let's get back on topic. Psychological safety is really important if you want a healthy movement. You need to give people room to learn and to grow. For some people, this can take longer than others. That's okay. You don't have to be the only one to teach them. And I feel like that's why a lot of people will quickly give up on others. They'll just be like, I don't have the energy or the time to teach this person everything they need to know. That's fine. You don't have to be. Other people can help you with that. That's why solidarity is so key. It's a group project. Another important aspect of having a healthy movement is conflict literacy. You want people to be aware and practiced at things like conflict resolution, de-escalation. You want them to be familiar with restorative models of thinking. Just to put it simply, the belief that people can learn and grow and change and do better. We also need to focus on shared goals instead of on our individual ego. Keep the focus on the cause, not the performance of righteousness. It's also helpful to have strong leadership and clear structure. When there's clarity around the roles and expectations, this reduces the chaos. I don't know if you've ever hung out with a group of anarchists, but a lot of passion, a lot of ideas, a lot of chaos. Not a lot of structure there. If we have transparent processes for feedback, for boundaries, and for decision making, this helps to build trust within the community. Real anarchists are all right. I like anarchists on the individual level, but collectively it's like their whole thing is like anti-structure. Like that's the whole thing. Like everybody do what you want. Kind of makes it hard to rally the troops. Anyway, Wayna, thank you for the sub. I'm going to resist taking more bites of the burrito. I'm trying to just get through the presentation, just in case there's somebody watching it. I don't want you to just sit here watching me eat a burrito. I'm going to go ahead and just get through the material. All right. Actually, this will afford me the opportunity to take some bites, because I've got some questions for you. I would like to open up the floor for some questions for discussion. Have you ever witnessed or experienced infighting in a space that was supposed to be supportive? And if so, what did it feel like? What I'm seeing is that a lot of people have experienced this before, and that generally the feelings were not good. It felt stupid. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it just feels silly. Sometimes it just feels like schoolyard nonsense. Like, really? Like, this is what you're fighting over? Like, yeah. It can make you feel hurt. It can make you feel betrayed. It can make you feel like you want to leave. Thank you for those gifted subs. Thank you, thank you. I'll give you a more sincere thank you once the presentation's over. Trying to power through. All right, I've got another question for you. How do you navigate disagreement with people that you mostly align with? How do you handle it? You got somebody you agree with each other on 99.9% of stuff. What do you do when that 0.1% of stuff pops up? Well, I scour the internet for everything they've ever posted, and I try to accumulate all the dirt I can, and then I leak it to the public, and then I criticize them, and that's not what you do, is it? It better not be. Naughty, naughty. Communicate. Try to have a conversation about it. Maybe you can come to a mutual understanding. Maybe you can agree to disagree. Maybe it doesn't need to be a deal breaker. The important thing is that you handle it in a healthy way. Either you have a good faith conversation about it, you agree to disagree, and you just leave it alone. You know, you don't escalate, you don't character assassinate, you don't scour the internet for all of their posts throughout all of history so that you can find something that they said that was distasteful as a means of discrediting them. I've seen people do that, and it's creepy, and it's weird. And the unfortunate truth is that that shit happens online too fucking often. I have another question for you. What sort of emotions show up for you when you feel called out? Or how about when you're tempted to call someone else out? What type of emotions does that rile up within you? Anger and resentment? Oh yeah. We can get very defensive. We might lash out. We might take things personally. We might escalate the conflict. It's like, oh, well, you said this thing about me. Well, I'm going to say this thing about you. The reason why I ask this is it's important to remember what types of emotions are present in this type of situation so that we can try to respond with cooler heads. It's important to recognize that sometimes during these disagreements, emotions are high and people might be doing or saying things that they might not say or do if they weren't agitated, if they weren't angry, if they weren't feeling embarrassed. In your eyes, what would it look like to hold someone accountable in a caring way? What would that look like? Go to them one-on-one. That's a big part of it. It's really important to remember that when we drag this shit out into public, that's not really us trying to resolve the conflict. That's us trying to publicly shame them. And so if you actually want to hold somebody accountable in a caring way, do it privately. That means that you actually care about the accountability, not just their public perception. Approaching them with concern rather than judgment, that's another good thing to do. We don't want to come across as being critical or judgmental. We just want to be like, hey, is everything all right? It just felt kind of out of place to hear you say something like that. You know, you show up and you are trying to find clarity with them instead of just rushing to judgment. If you're witnessing this as an outsider, is there something we can do? As Row Your Motorboat so wisely said, take it to the DMs. Get a room, you two. This isn't the Jerry Springer show. We're not trying to make this conflict your content. So this is a big one. This one's a bit more conceptual, so this is something that I'll kind of give you time to think about. What are some ways that we can transform infighting into an opportunity for collective learning? I think that's what we're trying to do right now with this presentation. And so it's a big undertaking. You know, and this isn't the start, nor is it the end of the process. It's just part of the process. That's okay. All right. Wrapping it up. Let's bring it on home. What infighting does is it reveals how our ideals, our identities, and our emotions collide under pressure. It's important to remember we can't let those things get in the way of the bigger picture. There's a larger goal that we're working towards, and we can't let these small things disrupt that. It's not just a behavior problem. It's a sign that there are often deeper wounds or unmet needs, or a lack of a healing infrastructure. That's something that I personally find really important in community spaces, is a healing infrastructure. The understanding that people can learn and grow and change instead of just reinforcing an echo chamber. If we want to build sustainable movements, we must learn to hold each other with both accountability and care. The thing with expressing these things on public forums is you will inevitably have people that want to troll or people that don't know enough about the issue chiming in, stirring the pot. Exactly. That's why if you're outside of a bar and you're in a fist fight, there's going to be people around you going, fight, 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 fight. It's the same shit. It's the same monkey-brained shit. Ooh, what's going on over here? Let me egg it on for my own entertainment. We don't have to agree on everything, but we do have to practice how we disagree. The goal is not to be perfect. Perfection doesn't exist. The goal is progress with compassion. And so let's stop eating our own and start feeding each other's growth. This has been the Leftist Infighting presentation. Thoughts, questions, comments, concerns?